Look, Canelo's not the only choice. That's the first choice, but it's not the only choice. Billy Joe Saunders is a huge fight over in the UK. Danny Jacobs is a huge fight in New York City. Gilberto Ramirez is a huge fight in Texas. So there's a lot of options for him right now. And we just have to go step by step. Then we have to look at the options. We have to look at Danny Jacobs. We have to look at potentially moving up to 168 if Ramirez will take the fight. Look, that's a situation where Bob reached out to see if we were interested, but there's no guarantee that Ramirez, like Bob wanted to make the Chavez fight too, and Chavez didn't take the fight. So there's no guarantee Ramirez will take the fight, even at 168. That's the problem where a lot of people say, why don't you move up to 168? But look, whether it's DeGale, whether it was Arthur Abraham would never fight Gennady, even if we went to Germany. So there's no guarantees of that, and that's why his focus has always been to unify the middleweight division. If we don't get a champion, then we'll have to look at all the different options.
Is it possible that would just be a one-time thing, and then you would drop back down?
No, I've always said that. I mean, he's a small middleweight. He came in at 159, and that he would do that. He wouldn't move to 168 for a fight and then stay there if he can cut off the ring. That's where Gennady comes in, where it doesn't matter what style. He's one of the best fighters I've ever seen that cuts off the ring the way he does. And that's why he's always in a position to either deliver his punch or to slip a punch. And for a Danny Jacobs fight, I think that's a great fight. Look, Danny made a huge statement by anytime you can beat Peter Quillin in one round by knockout, that's a big statement. We were at the WBA convention in Panama. Danny Jacobs is the regular champion. Gennady's the super champion for the WBA. So that's a fight that would naturally make a lot of sense, especially in New York. I know Madison Square Garden has huge interest in that fight. If Gennady can sell out the Garden against David Lemieux, if he fights Danny Jacobs, who's a native of New York, I mean that's a big fight. That I could see that being on pay-per-view, and I think that would be a fight that could be made if we couldn't make either Canelo or Billy Joe Saunders.
Speaking of Danny Jacobs, he's an Al Haymon fighter as well as Dominic Wade. How hard was it to get a deal done with an Al Haymon fighter on the HBO tonight?
Well, I got to tell you that when Wade was named the mandatory, there was no hesitation from Tom Brown's standpoint. We literally took about a week to work out the deal. And I know Al had signed off on that, and HBO recognizes, look, it's a mandatory obligation, and so I have a good relationship with Al. I've known him for a number of years. So there's, my job as a promoter for Gennady is to get the best fights in the ring. This was a mandatory fight, so we had to do it. So it doesn't matter which promoter. I probably worked with 9 different promoters in his since he's fought here on the States, and it's just a matter of. Doesn't matter who the promoter is, doesn't matter who the manager is. If we can make the fight with Danny Jacobs, that's a great fight.
What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Once again, shout out to Gennady Golovkin, 23rd consecutive knockout in his fight with Brook. And I got to chop up this subject matter about what's next. That's what everyone's talking about. Here's a show of respect from both fighters. Thought it was a good fight. Some people were questioning the controversial stoppage. Why did the corner stop it when Brook, some people had him up, some people had it split. Either way, he was holding his own as a welterweight, stepping up in there with Gennady Golovkin. Some people are saying it's because of his orbital was starting to fracture, so it was a matter of time. Either way, Golovkin said respect to my opponent, and people are curious about what's next for this man, Gennady Golovkin. Now, I gotta be honest with you. I think out of all Golovkin performances, in recent memory, since his rise to fame and since he's been pushed by HBO and stuff, he looked the most human and vulnerable in this. So a lot of people are going to be licking their chops at the opportunity to possibly face Golovkin more so than ever, right? We know he's been avoided. Certain guys didn't want it, but this happens in boxing. When you see that Mike Tyson can be hurt and knocked out, when you see that these powerhouses actually have chinks in their armor and they're not indestructible, then it becomes real. Like, man, there is a way to beat this person, right? And Golovkin, he's a good fighter. He's gonna be, you're gonna have to walk through hell to get it. You know what I mean? Because in my opinion, just based on his offensive skill set and his power, then if you don't have a chin, if you're not in good shape, he will break you down and get you out of there. So it's not even about that. You have to have certain intangibles. You know what I mean? Some level of ring IQ, some level of defense. I mean, speed will help, athleticism. So I'm not saying he's easy work for anybody, because you have to have the right skill set to do it. And Kell Brook, like I said, he was a welterweight holding his own, which is almost unheard of. If you think of, let's say, a guy coming up from 130, 135 to fight Floyd Mayweather, can you picture, he could be a champion at 130, 135. Can you picture him coexisting and looking great when Mayweather has fought bigger guys? You know what I mean? Fought at 154 and beat guys like Cotto and De La Hoya and Canelo at 152. You know what I mean? Can you picture people jumping up and fighting Pacquiao when he was the #1 person, when Mayweather was retired and he was the #1 pound for pound? Can you picture anyone jumping up 2 weight classes to fight Pacquiao? Pacquiao actually did that himself, where he jumped 2 weight classes to fight De La Hoya and he thrashed him. So definitely seen some vulnerabilities, but Golovkin got the job done. Now I want to talk about the subject of who's next in my favorite fights for Golovkin. Now obviously I want to see Golovkin versus Canelo. I think that goes without saying. Based on the back and forth banter and stuff like that, maybe that's a bit harder to make because of what's transpired and back and forth, and Canelo seems to want certain things, just different things like that. So I'm not even going to talk about that one too much, because the whole world has wanted it. And here's a picture of them sparring 16 weeks ago. Flashback Canelo Golovkin sparring. So it doesn't look like we're gaining any traction, but you guys seen the clip at the beginning where, see, here's another picture of Canelo, of Tom Loeffler. You've seen the picture or the video of Tom Loeffler saying that he has a relationship with Al Heyman. He's known him for a number of years, and he believes the fight could happen with Danny Jacobs, and that's definitely a big fight. Now, me personally, in my adult life, never been to New York, but I would try to go to New York if they did something like this at Madison Square or Barclays or something. Golovkin versus Danny Jacobs, which is the topic of this particular video. I think, aside from Canelo, and Canelo's a good fight, but truth be told, he's never even fought at the full 160. A fight that I think is a certifiable good fight, that with no stipulations, because again, I don't know if Canelo wants the 160, and you know what I mean, we don't know what Canelo himself would look like at fighting 160 pounders, but I do think it'll be the biggest fight business wise. But Danny Jacobs, I think, is a ready-made fight. There will be no excuses. That will be consolidating the WBA belt that they both share. Golovkin, the super champion, and Danny Jacobs being the regular champion. So we would get one WBA champion. It's a fight I think will do great numbers, especially on the East Coast. That's why I said I would try to even go to that. Danny Jacobs, this is what he had to say after his win with Sergio Mora. And I like this attitude from Danny Jacobs lately.
Big fight this weekend in the middleweight division. How do you feel about getting in there with the winner, unifying that belt?
I want to prove to the world that I'm the best middleweight ever, not ever, but in the world. I want to prove that. So if Triple G gets the victory, that's what we want.
Congratulations, fantastic win.
So he said he's down. He set the record straight with Sergio Mora. Not really a fight people were asking for, but like I said, when it first was announced, I was like, man, I don't really even want to see that. But I understand it. You know what I mean? Anytime you have somewhat of a blemish or asterisk controversial fight, it's fair to give the other person that chance to prove it wasn't a fluke. Like if they made a Brandon Rios Diego Chavez 2 based on the disqualification, how it ended, I wouldn't be shocked. You know what I mean? If they made a Jesse Vargas Timothy Bradley 2 based on that premature stoppage in the last round after Bradley was hurt, I wouldn't be shocked, and I would accept that. Even though that's not, I mean, Bradley, I think he clearly did enough to win the fight. He won 11 out of 12 rounds. You know what I mean? But based on that little fluke, just like Sergio Mora tripping and twisting up his leg, I mean, it made sense. But fast forward to the future, Golovkin wants to fight 3 times this year. I think this is clearly the best middleweight fight. Billy Joe Saunders, he's also a champion, but his mentality, he seems very selective. Doesn't want to fight Willie Monroe, doesn't want to fight Gabe Rosado, this and that. So I don't really trust that fight. You know what I mean? I don't know where Billy Joe Saunders' confidence. And if you don't have confidence, if you don't fight like Kell Brook and Willie Monroe and let your hands go a bit, even Curtis Stevens, then, and Martin Murray too. in the early first 3-4 rounds, then you have absolutely no chance to even win rounds with Golovkin. So I think Gennady Jacobs has a lot of the tools that would be very interesting and probably the best fight at middleweight for that reason. I mean, Gennady Jacobs, he's about 6 foot, 6'1". He stopped Peter Quillin in the first round, so he clearly has power. Quillin is a big dude. And see, this is how I know when I'm talking to casuals. Somebody brought up the fact that, oh, Jacobs would get killed in the first round. They said something crazy like that because look how long it took him to get Sergio Mora out, right? I interviewed Shane Mosley. He told me Sergio Mora had the trickiest feat of all fighters he'd been in with, including Floyd Mayweather. Styles make fights. You've seen him get somebody out of there like Peter Quillin in 1 round, so why wouldn't you bring up that? You know what I'm saying? So it's a tough fight for Gennady Jacobs. I'm not saying this is an easy fight. This is not even a fight prediction on who I think will win. If the time comes where the fight's made, then I'll drop the fight prediction and give more thoughts. But based on paper, I mean, you can argue, and I don't even know if you can really argue it only. I really believe that Gennady Jacobs win over Peter Quillin in the first round in that fashion, just like you heard Tom Loeffler, Golovkin's promoter, giving him credit for that. I think that's better than really any of the names and wins on Golovkin's resume. I mean, even guys like Ishida, that was a 54-pounder who moved up to 160, and Golovkin knocked him out cold, but it was in like the 3rd round, I want to say. You know what I'm saying? So Jacobs beating an undefeated Peter Quillin in a battle for Brooklyn. One's from Brooklyn and one migrated to Brooklyn. I thought that was very impressive. You know what I mean? Just based on the name. Peter Quillin's a guy who was struggling to even make middleweight. So I know he's big and he had a high knockout percentage. He has cracks, you know what I'm saying? And his resume is solid. Whether you thought he won or lost certain fights, I'm just talking about who he stepped in with. You know what I mean? The Indoms and Rosados and Winky Wright, things like that. So Gennady Jacobs versus Golovkin, clearly probably the best fight at middleweight other than Canelo, which is, I don't know what fight would be more competitive. Canelo, like I said, would be the better business fight, but Gennady Jacobs, he put also on Twitter and HBO Boxing, I'm on their page now, they retweeted it. I said it yesterday and I'm saying it again. Triple G, let's dance, good boy. Hashtag my turn. So make it happen. A lot of people are going to bring up dumb stuff like, oh, Jacob said he wanted this amount of money and stuff. Hopefully people seen the fight with Kell Brook and seen a welterweight daring to be great or whatever you want to call it, and now they get inspired. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I seen Brook landing some nasty uppercuts and doing this, and I hope this re-energizes everybody in the division to feel that now is their time to really. You can't let no welterweight outshine you. You know what I'm saying? You can't let no welterweight show more balls and stones than you. It just doesn't make sense. So I think now some of these guys will probably jump in, seeing the success that Kell Brook had. And I really believe this. A lot of people, when I said this before, they got mad. Golovkin has power, clearly. But I don't think he has the type of Deontay Wilder, Julian Jackson power. Like when I see guys, when Wilder touches you with the right pause, you're out of there. You know what I'm saying? If he hits you clean, it's like you got struck by lightning. You know what I mean? He fought this one guy. It's like Sergey Likowitz or something like that, and the guy's body was convulsing as he hit the ground. When he knocked out Artur Szpilka, it was out of nowhere. He just connected clean, and Szpilka looked crucified. His arms were like he was being spread on a cross. You know what I mean? Same thing with Julian Jackson. If he connected, he would hit you. Golovkin has great offense and good technique. I think he's getting hit a little bit too much, and you got to watch that against a full-fledged middleweight. But in Triple G's defense, you got to say Gennady Jacobs has been stopped before, whereas Golovkin hasn't. You know what I mean? Dmitry Pirog knocked out Gennady Jacobs. Now, this was before his latest run, before he became this champion, and I think it might have even been before he battled cancer. So we'll see what both fighters learn, but to me, that is the best middleweight fight. Other good fights would be Chris Eubank or Billy Joe Saunders, but that's what I got to see. No more small guys like Kell Brooks and Ishida and Gabe Rosado, guys coming up from 54, 147. Even to pass time, you got the money fight with Kell Brook. You got some fans from the UK. Now, if you go back to the UK, make it for a guy like Billy Joe Saunders. Maybe move up like Tom Loeffler said. If you absolutely can't get the top guys like Billy Joe Saunders, Canelo, Chris Eubank Jr., or Danny Jacobs next, then I really want to see him fight like a Gilberto Ramirez. And you can always drop back down. Floyd did it, you know what I'm saying? Pacquiao did it when he fought Margarito and dropped back down to welter, right? Then he even dropped back down for Chris Algieri, 143. So if Golovkin's such a small middleweight like they're saying, then he should be able to do that no problem. And if he's so powerful like they're saying, they say he knocks out cruiserweights and his power is there, and then it shouldn't be much of an issue. Any guy with that type of menacing power should be all right for himself. So that's my thoughts on it. Danny Jacobs is the fight I want to see the most at middleweight, barring Canelo, which is a little bit more because I don't know if it's just Canelo. I don't know what's caused the block. That fight could have been made. Let me know what you think. Danny Jacobs versus Gennady Golovkin. Great fight, meaningful fight, unification and consolidation type of fight. Drop it in the comment section. Make sure you like my video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.